As US-mediated peace talks in Geneva stall between Ukraine and Russia, attention also turns to the new US-led Board of Peace in Washington. We discuss both developments with Stuart Dell. He's political editor at TVP World. Stuart, welcome back. Good to see you.
Hi, good to be here.
Before we kick off, let's start with the Board of Peace. I think we've got a couple of sound bites. I'll take your view on them.
President Trump's Board of Peace is convening in Washington. In the current circumstances, the government in Warsaw is not planning on Poland joining the board. Any potential visit of Polish representatives in Washington will see them attend solely in an observer capacity. We have to say this in clear, categorical terms. Poland does not intend to send troops to the Gaza Strip. We are dealing with our own problems, and I don't have to explain to anyone what the Polish armed forces are focused on. Neither is Poland interested in contributing financially to any land or property development projects in the Gaza Strip, which also does not warrant further explanation. We need to finance our own investments in our own cities and towns.
Okay, so that was Prime Minister Tusk of Poland talking about this Board of Peace. Before we get into that, can you briefly explain what that is? What is the Board of Peace?
Well, the Board of Peace is the body set up under the auspices of the United Nations, led by America under Trump, to handle the enforcement of the ceasefire in Gaza and the reconstruction of Gaza after the conflict. But then it morphed into this Board of Peace, into a general, as Trump has described it, conflict resolution body led entirely by Trump, chaired by him for the rest of his life, if he wants it, with a select group of 60 countries, only a small number have confirmed that they want to join. And the suspicion is that it was an attempt to kind of enact a hostile takeover of the functions of the United Nations, and even become not so much a conflict resolution body, but a post-conflict profiteering body, how to make money out of redevelopment of conflicts, and that's pointed to by the presence of several businessmen on the board.
Right, I want to come to that in just a second. Let's go back to the soundbite we've just heard. So Prime Minister Tusk has said, there's absolutely no way that we're getting involved with the Board of Peace. We're not sending Polish soldiers to the Gaza Strip, and we're not investing, because there is an investment involved, $1 billion for each country. So a very clear message, but there still will be a Polish representation at the Board of Peace meeting in Washington. What's that all about?
Yeah, the person who's going to represent the president is Marcin Przydacz, who's the president's Minister for International Policy. So he's going to go, and that kind of I think represents the least bad option out of all, the best of a bad bunch of options for Poland, because we've got two sides. We've got the government who didn't want Poland to participate from the outset, and that's because Trump's Board of Peace represents a challenge to the United Nations, the rules-based international order, and Tusk representing a centrist liberal government as part of a liberal democracy. It goes against. It goes against that, but for Karol Nawrocki, he wanted to attend at the beginning. So did Jarosław Kaczynski, for example, who said, yes, Poland should be there. They should pay the $1 billion. But then the project kind of morphed into not so much a hostile takeover of the UN, but more into a kind of a rogues gallery, or as I've described in the article I wrote today, a kind of meeting of James Bond villains. We had invited to attend was Vladimir Putin, Russia. Alexander Lukashenko also is going to be representatives from Saudi Arabia, and basically a whole bunch of authoritarian regimes. And that made Karol Nawrocki think twice. Does he want to be seen on the same platform as Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko? Of course not. But then the project morphed again. Those two that I just mentioned are not going to attend the inauguration meeting tomorrow for their own reasons, and then it's turned into
Putin and Lukashenko.
So now it's turned into, as I described today, more of a convention of penny stock day traders in a meeting in a co-working office, and of course that would bring up a kind of an image problem for Karol Nawrocki. To be seen in that kind of company would make leave him open to ridicule.
Right, so it sounds as though it's kind of falling apart before it even started, really. Is it sustainable, this border peace? I mean, what do you think is going to happen to it? Is it going to be something, consigned to the dustbin of history before too long?
Well, its first job is to handle the situation in Gaza. And looking at the countries who are involved, we have countries like El Salvador, Mongolia, Cyprus, and with the greatest respect to those countries, they don't provide the kind of diplomatic resources to bring about kind of changes that need to be in Gaza. There is a fragile. It's described as a fragile peace, but it's not really a peace because the two sides are still fighting against each other. I believe something in the range of 500 to 600 Palestinians have died since the peace came into effect. Israeli soldiers have died, and Israel have recently sent their airplanes on bombing missions. So basically, there's still a war. We only call it a peace because of the scale of the war that was before it. Whether this border peace has the resources to do anything will be its first big test. My feeling is it won't be able to do anything.
Right, and the other issue is, of course, and Prime Minister Tusk has alluded to this, is that Poland does have a constitutional restriction on being involved in the border peace. Why?
Well, because the government sets foreign policy, and for Poland as a country to join an international organisation is a policy decision. It requires an act of parliament of which the president would need to sign off on, but it needs to come from the parliament. And Prime Minister Tusk and Foreign Minister Sikorski have been very vocal in reminding the presidential camp that policy comes from the government. So they've suggested to Karol Nawrocki that he could participate as an observer, and they would arrange logistics necessary for that to happen. So that's the reason. Okay,
now I want to move to President Trump. You say it's a collection of day traders. That's the way it's turning out to be. Can you talk us through the thinking? He's a chairman of this border peace. He's chairman for life, and he also nominates his successor. Sounds like a little bit of an empire that he's building here. I mean, what's the thinking? What's the strategy? Can you make head or tail of it?
Well, it's as you described. It's also been described as a hub and spoke organisation. Donald Trump is the hub, and he sends his decisions out to the spokes. The idea is that the countries on the end of the spokes don't get to talk to each other and form coalitions to affect the decisions as they do in the United Nations. The United Nations is well known for different coalitions forming to create additional influence for smaller countries. That's why medium-sized countries like Poland and other countries in Europe see value in the United Nations. It's not really because of what the United Nations can do. We know that the United Nations fails to do lots of things that are in its charter, but it gives medium-sized countries a little bit of extra clout. But in this situation, organisation, Donald Trump would control the agenda. He would have a casting vote on any decisions that are made. Based on the kind of countries that he's invited, it would be clear that all the decisions would ultimately be decisions that Donald Trump wants to make. So yeah, it's a kind of a privatization of the international system. Right.
Now you mentioned the United Nations. Is this an attempt to speed decisions up, because as you say, the UN, it's missed the boat on a huge number of decisions it could have made, but moves very slowly. Finding agreement, it takes ages. Is there an opportunity there for the Board of Peace to actually make decisions and make things happen faster?
There's definitely an opportunity for the Board of Peace to make rapid decisions. I would say that as soon as an idea comes into Donald Trump's head, then it can become a decision. So that it can be a very, very quick decision. The question is, would those decisions be the right ones for resolving conflicts and dealing with the post-conflict situations in the conflicts that may come up around the world? We don't know yet what conflicts the board may deal with, but for sure the situations will be very, very complicated as they always are, and there's a whole load of business people on the board, which raises the suspicion that some of the motivation could be for individuals to profit.
Right, okay. Now, in the last few minutes that we have left, Stuart, I'd like to move on to the peace talks that have just concluded in Geneva, and we have a short sound bite on those, which I'd like to share with you.
Today we had another round of trilateral negotiations in the Ukraine-US-Russia format. The discussions were intensive and substantive. We thank our US partners for ensuring that the process is not stopping and continues, and Swiss side for hosting us and hospitality. Within the delegation, both political and military tracks were engaged, security parameters and mechanisms for implementing possible decisions were discussed, a number of issues were clarified, while others remain under additional coordination. There is progress, but no details can be disclosed at this stage. The next step is to achieve the necessary level of consensus to submit the developed decisions for consideration by the presidents. Our task is to prepare a practical, not merely formal, foundation for this. Ukraine remains constructive. The ultimate objective is unchanged, a just and sustainable peace.
Regarding the military track, I heard progress. On the political track, there was a dialogue and they agreed to continue. I did not hear the same level of progress there as on the military track.
Right, so there we had Rustem Umerov. He's Ukraine's lead negotiator, of course, President Zelenskyy. Now, Umerov sounded actually rather positive, didn't he? He said, made great progress and everything's on track and we have to report to our presidents and so on. Whereas Zelenskyy kind of was a little bit more cautious. He said there's a political track and a military one. The military one, okay, we're getting there, but the political one is where the challenge lies. Talk to us about what you think is happening there.
I think probably nothing very much happened in terms of the big issues involved in coming to either an end to the war or a ceasefire. Ukraine, of course, wants to go for a ceasefire first, and then even possibly hold elections. But Russia doesn't want the ceasefire. It wants its maximalist demands to be met, and then end the war after they've been met. There's no suggestion in any way that any progress has been made towards the issue of territory.
Right. Okay. So that is, I assume, what President Zelenskyy was talking about when he talked about the political track. What about the military track? He said, that's going well. What has happened there?
Well, we don't know the details yet. I understand that they talked about a possible additional prisoner transfer exchange. That would be good if it happens, but that's the kind of level that these talks are on. Those are the only kind of positive things that we can expect. There are two things happening at the moment. Zelenskyy at the Munich Security Conference was very clear in his irritation that Donald Trump is expecting Ukraine to make concessions at the moment and not Russia. On the Russian side, we can say that maybe they did feel that progress has been made, because their idea of progress is to keep talks going and continue the war.
Right, which they've been doing right since ever since the talks began.
And I'd just like to add that there's a increasing. I'm hearing an increasing number of observers, analysts, and even politicians in America on the Republican side, seeing much more clearly now than before that Russia and Putin have no interest in ending the war anytime soon. I mean, it's obvious sitting here in Warsaw that's the case, but it's a kind of a very small encouragement that even people in the Republican Party are seeing that now.
I mean, is this going to change President Trump's view on Russia? Do you think? Because as you said, President Zelenskyy thinks that Ukraine's the only party that's being required to make concessions.
It doesn't look like it. President Trump is acting, I would say, like a broken record. He's talking about how Zelenskyy needs to get to the table. Again, Zelenskyy keeps going back to the table. There's no problem with Zelenskyy going to the table. He wants to get a peace deal done by July, 4th of July, for the American 250th anniversary of their independence. For America, they need to gain a partnership agreement with Russia in order to access their minerals, which they need to supply their supply chains in their long-term geo-economic standoff against Russia. And the war is getting in the way of doing that. So there's a continual frustration from the American side.
Now, the other thing that President Zelenskyy has said is that his population would never forgive him if he handed land over to the Russians. Of course, the Russians want the bits of Donbass that they haven't occupied already. Is that likely to be the critical sticking point?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's been a sticking point right from the beginning. There hasn't been a major war in memory where a defending nation has given up territory that it's been successfully defending to sign a capitulation that it doesn't have to, and it will continue to be the main sticking point.
Yeah, well, I think this gives you quite a good insight into Putin's attitude towards peace talks. Stuart, as always, thank you so much for sharing your analysis with our audience.
Thank you.
Have a good one. And that brings us to the end of this episode of News in Depth. Don't go away, lots more coming up. Goodbye.